Hello and welcome back inside the High School Huddle. Wednesday, September 24th, 2025. And after next week's games, we'll be halfway done with the regular season.
Jeez.
Tonight, this week, we begin with district play. And there are some big-time district matchups across the entire state of Oklahoma. And it's going to be a lot of fun here. High School Huddle presented by title sponsor Red River Roofing. Big thank you to them as well, all of our fantastic sponsors here for the High School Huddle. We'll be with you the entire season, all the way through the middle of December when we start crowning state championships at UCO. But a big game that will decide a long ways as far as the district play is the High School Huddle's game of the week. It is the Bixby Spartans visiting the Jenks Trojans, and our special guest this week is none other than Don King, the voice of the Jenks Trojans football program. Of course, Don does so much more outside of Jenks, but Don, so glad to have you with us here on the High School Huddle.
Good to see you three guys, man. I like those three smiling faces.
Don, great to see you, brother. We were talking earlier that we refer to you as the GOAT in Oklahoma. You are the GOAT.
Well, I don't know about that, but I appreciate the comments. I'm in the Phil Nichols Memorial Man Cave, so when I call it quits, Phil better bring a truck because
I'm coming, baby.
He's coming to get my stuff.
I'm coming with a check and a truck.
Yeah. I hope you carry stuff.
Don has a great memorabilia collection, as you see there, and I don't know if that's your normal broadcast setup, but I think you might have done a little special set up tonight for Phil.
Made my day.
Absolutely. When you guys are over here, let me know next time, and we'll certainly have you over.
That'd be awesome, brother. Thank you. Don,
there's so much we want to get to. We don't want to take up your entire night, but I think one of the coolest things that I've read up on you in years past is how you got into broadcasting. I think it's a fantastic story. If you wouldn't mind sharing that story in the stands and talk about how you got introduced to, hey, I might be pretty good at broadcasting, if you wouldn't mind sharing that story.
Yeah, I think it's a neat story. My sister is 7 years older than I am. She went to the University of Tulsa in the mid '60s and was a sports fan and would take her transistor radio. We started going to the TU games. This is during the Jerry Rome, Howard Twilley football days in the early '60s when they were throwing the ball all over the field, and then the basketball team was good, playing Louisville, Cincinnati, all the great teams out in the Missouri Valley. So we went to a basketball game at the fairgrounds, and her batteries ran out in her transistor. And she nudged me and she said, "Hey, you're going to have to tell me what's going on because my batteries are out." So I gave her a brief description of what things were going on. So as we walked out, she said, "You did about as good a job as Lynn Morton, who was the announcer at that time. You did about as good a job as Lynn Morton." And of course, Lynn was my idol back then, just getting into sports. I was probably in the fourth grade. So the light bulb went off. And so interestingly enough, being blind, and we would hire girls from Drum Rights where I grew up. So we would hire girls to come in and read her books on big reel-to-reel tape recorders. And so whenever one of them wasn't being used, I would sit in my bedroom. And, most kids make up major league teams or college teams. I made up high school teams. I was a big drum right because back then you didn't get much pro sports on TV. And as you guys well know, when you're in the third, fourth grade, you look up to the high school guys like they're the kings, right? So I would sit there and make up my own. Drum right would play Guthrie in basketball, and I had the old Stratomatic. So I would try to get the rosters, or at least the newspapers, and have the key players, but then make up some other names somehow. And it would record into this Wallensack, and actually still have. I found a tape the other day when I was about 10 years old. It's probably about a minute long of me doing a game or a fake game. And so that's how it stuck. And so from there, I always knew what I wanted to do when I was about 10 years old.
Don, it worked.
Yeah,
it worked.
Well, I've been very blessed. I went to Oklahoma State and got into radio and television at the time. They had a great radio TV program in the early mid '70s, and from there went to Ponca City and was still in school and went to work for an FM station. And all they did was they did high school wrestling because Ponca City was really good back then. Yep. And they didn't do anything else. And I said, well, I'd really like to do football. And I don't know that much about wrestling, but I'll do it. And then from there, a few years later, I guess a year later, I talked him into doing Sunday Legion baseball. And I think Guthrie played Ponca City. Actually, we had Joe Carter from Millwood and Darren Dalton from Arc City. And Ray Hayward from Enid. We had a great league. And so we did the Sunday Night Legion baseball home games.
That's truly, truly amazing. And also now, fast forward, you got a lot of dudes. You do well, but I also got to do some Oklahoma City Blues stuff. I don't know how many years you've been doing that, but I think in return you got some good seats for a lot of great NBA playoff action.
Well, we do. I started when the 66ers were here, and they started in 2005. I worked for a radio station in advertising and did sports talk. And so my niche, I knew the sports teams so well, right? So I would work with the sports teams to develop contracts to have their games on the air. And lo and behold, who could do the play-by-play but me? So I did the Sixers until they moved to Oklahoma City. I was still in advertising. And then when I retired from everyday work, they called me about 3 years ago and asked if I'd come back. And so that's been a blessing. But yeah, we buy a half a season package, have great seats, club level seats. And this last year's run was unbelievable, as you guys know. I mean, everything just fell into place for these guys, and you couldn't ask for a better group of 18 players to form this Thunder roster. And of course, they've kept pretty much all of them. But the thing that impresses me the most about the Thunder quickly is how they vet not just the Thunder players, but the Blue players. They don't want any guys that are not committed to this program and this organization. And so they vet these guys. A lot of them come from major college programs that they know they've gotten great development. And so they won the G League championship 2 years ago. And then they've been very successful here in the last couple of years.
Speaking with Don King, got a big game on Friday night. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. Kind of want to get into 6A football, East and West. And
sure.
I would just get your thought process on the domination. The West Side has not won a state championship since 1995 with Collier and the Midwest City Bombers winning that game. Since then, it's been Jenks, Owasso, Bixby, Broken Arrow,
Union.
Union.
Times, yeah.
So what you see this week in and week out throughout the season? What is some of the differences that you see? And on the tail end of that, is the West Side getting a little bit closer?
I'll answer the last part first. Yes, the West Side is getting much closer. When they're going to win the next championship, I don't know, because Bixby and Jenks look to be really, really good this year. And I haven't seen Broken Arrow yet, but Travis Hill has them on the right path. That's not to say that nobody can do it this year, but I expect them to win one here in the next handful of years, and they are getting better, much more competitive games. Mustang has played Jenks extremely tough. Santa Fe, when they've been good, they've come up here and beat Jenks twice in the last 5 or 6 years. So, yeah, the West Side is getting much better. Where it started, guys, was the addition of Bill Blankenship from Edmond to Union and Ron Lancaster from Enid to Jenks. Those two gentlemen raised the bar of expectations, and they did it with the weight room. They did it with a 12-month program. You know, football at that time, back in the early to mid-'90s, wasn't necessarily a 12-month program. They made it a 12-month program, and they worked extremely hard over the summer. So the weightlifting, the 12-month commitment for these football players was a huge key. And again, the expectations. Ron Lancaster and Bill Blankenship brought it to another level. Trimble certainly played off of that, what Lancaster had started. And then, of course, Kirk Fredericks followed that with Blankenship at Union. And Dave Alexander won one at BA. And, of course, Blankenship winning a couple at Owasso hasn't hurt either. So the East Side has dominated since '95. That was a great Midwest City team that took They beat Jenks in overtime that year. But yeah, the West Side's coming.
Don, one thing that we always talk about on the West Side as pertains to 6A1 ball is some of the sizes of enrollment at the different schools. Owasso, very big. Broken Arrow, obviously the largest school district. Jenks is big. I mean, you got a lot of larger districts over. Of course, on the West Side, you got Mustang that stands out, right? But most of them are, there's 3 Edmond schools, really 4 if you count Deer Creek. There's talk about building another high school in Edmond, so there'll be 5 schools in Edmond.
Wow.
When you look at that, do you think that plays into it? I mean, common sense would say it does, but do you feel like it really does when it comes down to it?
I think it plays a little bit into it just because you have to have numbers in football. Yeah. Look what they've done in basketball. They've dominated. The West Side has dominated in basketball over the East Side in the big schools over the years. Yeah. So, they don't gripe much about that on the basketball end of it. But football, you do need more numbers. I think where the West Side, I think there are 2 things. I think the 12-month commitment, the West Side schools were a little bit slower in doing that compared to the East Side schools. And then you look at the youth programs. Yep. The JTA in Jenks was also morphed into the Indian Nations Football Conference. All of these area schools play a youth football league from Mighty Might now up into the 7th grade. And I think their formation, their organization was so strong over the years. And I think the Oklahoma City area wasn't as strong in developing the youth programs. And they've caught up. They've come along. And a lot of those schools will now play over here on the East Side in the youth football programs.
Don, along that point, I've never seen Jenks, but I'm sure Jenks is the same, Owasso the same. But I have seen videos on social media of Bixby's youth program. And it's impressive to say the least. Not just the organization of it. You can tell they're running the offense that they're going to run eventually, or a variation of that. They're preparing these kids from really this little tykes all the way up, but also the sheer athleticism of some of these kids. Yep. You see on these videos, you're going, he's in the 5th grade? Yep. You're watching this kid just spin the ball down the field. It's really, for people like us, the 4 of us that are high school football complete geeks, it's so exciting because, we're in really good hands for a lot of years to come. We're going to see a lot of good football.
Oh, absolutely. And you look at what the major schools are coming in here and recruiting, right? There isn't a major college that's not coming into Oklahoma anymore and recruiting, plucking players out. Josh Proctor at Owasso was a starting safety for Ohio State a few years back. Michigan has come in. So, I think that's a big part of it. And Lauren Montgomery came from the Trimble tree, and it took him a few years to get things going at Bixby. And it's interesting. Trimble has won 13 state championships, which is more than any coach. And his assistants have now won 18 state championships, including Lauren Montgomery's 10. And Matt Hennessy at Pawhuska is number 2 ranked, and he's been knocking on the door. So he might be the next one to win a state championship besides Montgomery at Bixby.
You bring up the late, great Coach Alan Trimble, just a legend. He's got to be, I have an opinion. I think he's the greatest high school coach in the history of Oklahoma high school football. And then when you mention his tree, you got to say he's had the greatest impact as far as championships of any coach in the history. Would you agree with that?
Not bad for a guy from Cleveland, Oklahoma, right?
Yeah, not bad. Not bad.
Not bad at all. I moved from Ponca City, Stillwater areas doing games. I moved to Tulsa in 1980. I was in the oil patch at the time and doing some sports broadcasting on the side, but it was in the oil patch. My dad was in the oil field supply business. And Alan Trimble, in his summers, would work in Cleveland at a supply store while he was going to NSU. So going into his senior year, he would buy equipment from me.
Wow.
And so I said, what do you want to do when you graduate from NSU? And he said, I think I want to be a math teacher and coach. And I said, well, I'm doing some play-by-play. Maybe someday I'll get to do one of your games. Lo and behold, in 1988, we started the Tulsa Cable Game of the Week. J.B. Haney and I started the high school games of the week that are now on Cox Cable throughout the state. And I look across the field, and there's Alan Trimble, an assistant at Owasso, 1988. And so he and I obviously gave each other a big hug. And later he became an assistant at Jenks. And he and I were joined at the hip for many years. I think this is the 36th year we have televised a Jenks coaches show on cable TV here in the Tulsa market. And Lancaster started it, but Trim and I were very much a part of that together for so many years. And you're right. I don't think there's any question that his impact in Oklahoma football was spot on. Lancaster developed some things that he kept as far as practice schedules that I think Sheen still does. But Alan felt the high school kids were changing, and Ron was old school, man.
Yeah.
If you knew Ron Lancaster, you knew he was old school. He's still one of my favorites. But Alan realized that kids were changing, and you couldn't treat the kids in the mid-'90s that you could in the '70s and '80s. And he had great impact on a lot of players and certainly a lot of coaches, no question.
Unbelievable guy.
Now,
Yeah,
before we start talking Bixby Jenks for you real quick, we talk about this a lot on our show, Don, and I kind of want Don King's opinion on this. You've seen a lot of high school football from way back when to now. What do you think of this whole transfer thing? This kids, going to 2, 3, even sometimes even 4 high schools in a 4-year span. So I kind of want to get your opinion on that because obviously it's brand new to all of us. But it's this past season, it's really taken off. Over 200 kids transferred in high school football alone last year. So kind of just want to get your take on that.
Yeah, I have mixed emotions. I think at the college level, I see where guys, if things aren't working out, you should be able to transfer. I have a completely different philosophy on how that should work. But to your high school question, it's tough. It's really tough to adapt to. We had Samaj Stanford, who is one of the top players in the state of Oklahoma, who would have beaten Rocky Kalmus's career tackles record if he had stayed at Jenks for 2 more years. Instead, goes to Broken Arrow. And he's an outstanding player, probably next to KD Jones, the best player in the metro area here in Tulsa.
Wow.
My question is, we would have never done that when the thought of transferring would have never entered our minds,
Right.
because we grew up in a community, had roots to that community, and I just don't know where kids are going to have those roots when they grow older. When there's a 10-year high school reunion, a 25-year high school reunion, are those kids going to adapt and go to whatever school they graduated from? Plus, we would have, I think, a little animosity toward a kid who didn't want to play with us and wanted to play with another team. But you know what? That seems to be out the window. The Stanford, we'll see. I'm trying to think. The Rising kid, there were 6 of them that left Jenks to go to Union a few years ago. Shaker Reisig was one of them, and the quarterback. And I believe it was Reisig. I know it was one of the 6. They had just transferred, and a few weeks later, the Super Bowl was on, and I think it was Shaker. One of those players came back to Jenks and got with his buddies and watched the Super Bowl, and it was no big deal. So it's interesting how the kids have adapted to this as compared to when we probably wouldn't have adapted as well. And I'm not so sure, especially at the quarterback position. That's your leader. And I think when these quarterbacks move around, I think a program loses a little bit because they're still trying to adapt to the leadership qualities of their quarterback. Is he the guy we really want to get behind? And I think it hurts some programs when the quarterbacks are your number one guy and he is transferred in.
And I got 500 examples of what you just went through. The other flip side, just a little bit, and I think you would know this story really well, is the Edison kid a few years ago played at Edison, and now offensive lineman at Jenks. I don't know if he graduated last year or not.
Yeah.
But at Edison, he had no chance of winning 3 or more ball games. He wouldn't have that playoff experience. He wouldn't have the ability to play at Jenks. That's the other side that has me torn because I get that. But the story that you shared, there's 800,000 of those stories out there.
Way more than that.
Well, and I would simply say this. Dawn, you and I are the elder statesmen on the show tonight, but I can promise you, I would have rather stayed with my guys and went 0-10 than go to a school 15 minutes away that we played against and win a state championship. I just had my 40th class reunion a couple years ago, and inevitably, we've all experienced this. If you played sports within an hour of everybody getting together, what are you talking about? You're talking about the games. You're talking about the big games you experienced together. You're talking about the situations. You know, that stuff that stays with you no matter what. And I got to thinking about it. I don't even remember what our records were, but I remember all those stories. You know, I remember the moments. I remember the moments with my buddies, and that's the stuff they lose.
If Don covered your school, he can tell you what your records
I know he could. I know he could. But
it's right behind me.
Yeah. But to your point, and listen, you know, I think as you get older, you become more and more of a traditionalist, I guess is the right word, or maybe hard-headed is another word for it. But I hate it. I just hate it. I don't like it.
And here's the thing, and I've been saying this for a long time. I've said for many, many years, these guys can tell you, that social media has absolutely ruined this world and country. Yes. And now kids with social media, these kids know each other from other towns. They talk to each other. They go to the movies with each other. Whereas back when we played, even when I graduated in 03, you wouldn't catch me dead with a Carl Albert player at a movies. You know, you wouldn't catch me dead at a Carl Albert party or vice versa. You just didn't see that. Now this time, everybody knows each other. They can text, they can DM each other. Hey, you want to go hang out? That stuff just never happened. You know?
No, exactly. I played at Drumright, and we weren't very good. I'm not sure we won a game. This was a junior high game. Okay, 9th grade game. We played Bristow. And they had a kid named Wes Hankins, who was just a magnificent player, who went on to OSU and led the Big 8 at the time in punt returns and kick returns. But unfortunately, his grades weren't very good, and he lasted just one season. But we couldn't eat. Not only could we not tackle him, we couldn't touch him, and they beat us 90-0.
Oh, geez.
And we're walking off the field, and they're giving us, a hard time. Oh, you guys are terrible. I can't believe we beat you 90-0. And one of my buddies popped up and said, if you guys were really that good, you would have put 100 on us. So shut up and get to the bus.
Speak with Don King, the voice of Jenks. Let's transition to Friday night's contest. And before we talk X's and O's, Don, what's the formula Lauren Montgomery has going on? I mean, he's going for 8 in a row. What's the sauce? I know he's great with X's and O's. Kids are starting. He's built that. In fact, the last team that really had any dominance over Bixby was Guthrie, 05, 06, 07. They won 2 out of 3 since then. Boom. But what's the secret sauce? What's going on in Bixby?
Well, I think there are a number of things. I think number one, his being in the Jenks system and knowing he was there from 2000 to 2009. So he was there during a big run and developed a lot of that through Coach Trimble, and that's just details to the minute things. Very consistent when it comes to your program. I think that's one thing. I think another thing is he knew the weight room situation at Bixby wasn't what it needed to be. So he raised the level of that, and then he started with the youth program and knew the only way you're going to build a program is through the youth program, and he does that. And he's coached some youth programs himself. He's had assistants coach youth programs. And I think one of the biggest things, maybe the biggest thing, guys, he still has his offensive coordinator and his defensive coordinator, Tyler Schneider and Rodney Flowers. Those two guys have been with him since he was there 16 years ago. Wow. They're still the OC and DC. They haven't left. And I think that is a huge compliment to him and a compliment to them to stick with the program for that length of time and not veer off for their own head coaching job.
Well, Bixby, since 2018, they're 88-4. Now, 2 of those losses have been to the Jenks Trojans. Mm-hmm. And so I think one of the big advantages, like when Guthrie goes against Carl Albert, they're not intimidated by the helmet. A lot of teams are intimidated by that helmet. Jenks will not be intimidated by the helmet of Bixby Spartans. Now, Bixby might win, but Jenks going into that game has very talented players. They're number 2 team by far in 6A1, but they won't be intimidated, and it's at home, and they've been underdogs before in this series and have won big-time games.
Yeah, there was a time when Jenks, through that domination, when they were dominant, for so many years, you just felt like when the other team got off the bus, they were 7 points behind, or when they came out of their home locker room, they were 7 points behind. When they came off the bus at Jenks, they were 14 points behind. I think a lot of teams feel that with Bixby. Here's a nugget for you: 88-4, as you say, since 2018. Jenks has beaten them 2 of those 4 times. Only 7 times of those 88 wins has a team been able to stay within 14 points of Jenks. Bixby. Their average margin of victory through those 88 games is 45 points. Only 7 times has a team stayed within 14 points. And Jenks has done it 3 other times besides beating them twice. So I think the Trojans have had 2 weeks to prepare. They were off last week. Bixby had to play, as you know, Choctaw last week. I think that gives Jenks an advantage. I think the Trojans offensively, I'm really anxious to see how well because they have some weapons. This young quarterback they have, a first-year starter, a junior, Landon Kazar, is 74% passing completion rate and has looked very poised. He did last year as a backup, and he has not missed a beat this year. He's got some really good receivers. KD Jones is, as you guys talked about, decommitted from OSU, but is not only a great running back, but an outstanding receiver out of the backfield. Caleb Dillard is got offered by OSU and originally offered by Miami of Florida a couple of years ago. He's had an outstanding year at receiver. So I'm anxious to see how the Jenks offense, I think they'll be able to score some points against Bixby. I think it's the Jenks defense against this Bixby offense, and whoever controls the line of scrimmage there is probably going to win the game.
And all that information Don just gave us is why he's the GOAT.
Well, he writes books. He writes books. So.
I mean, it just amazes me, Don. It really does. But I think one of the things that's always impressed. Of course, we came over last year. We had a bye week from the games that we traditionally cover on Friday nights, and so we chose to go over and watch that first Owasso Jenks game at Jenks. And we come pulling in, and of course, our frame of reference is a 5A town that we live in. We went through we had some really fun state championship runs in our community and got to see the fans, what we thought were really fired up and crazy. We come pulling in, and I look at Chris, I look at Ronnie, and I said, you know what, all that stuff we did as fans during our runs, I said, that was cute. I mean, this was this is a regular season ball game.
Talking about the tailgating,
just everything.
Atmosphere.
The atmosphere, it's incredible at Jenks. It's incredible at Jenks.
Well, it's going to be Big Friday. They got what they call the Hometown Huddle, which is a 2-block area where it's kind of a carnival setting where all the clubs in the high school have different tents and different games for kids to play. And so that will be going on Friday night. Should be about 9,000 there, standing room only. It's good. It's very good. I think I will say doing the Jenks games for since 1988, radio since for about the past 23 years, Jenks fans are a little spoiled sometimes. And when you go to away games, they travel well, but once they get in the playoffs, they hardly ever show up for the first round playoff game because they think, we're gonna win that game.
Yeah, the rest.
And so they don't show up until it's the semifinals and the finals, and they really don't show up for Labor Day. If the Labor Day home game, we have a home game on Labor Day, it's not as good a crowd, but it's getting better. Clay Martin is the new AD. You guys know Clay well as the NFL referee, and Clay is doing a great job of really picking up the game atmosphere at Jenks even better than what it has been. And so I credit a lot to him the last couple of years.
What a class act Clay is. I mean, just first class guy all the way around. And
absolutely.
It's kind of cool too to be watching an NFL game and say, hey, there's our buddy Clay.
Exactly.
It's kind of a cool thing. Yeah.
Exactly. Oddly enough, Jenks is the only school in 5A or 6A that doesn't have an athletic Hall of Fame. And so we have been pounding the drum for Clay, and I know they've been working on it, and hopefully they will have an announcement soon that they've come to some sort of formation.
I mean, you're gonna have a 14-hour day to just to get the grades, just to get the first part of the grades in.
Take you 40 years to catch up.
Yeah.
Well,
no kidding.
Don, Chris, and I serve on the Hall of Fame committee here in our community in Guthrie, and I'll tell you, it's fun. but
You need a spokesperson.
you need a spokesperson.
Right.
Because when stuff starts releasing out there of who's going in for a certain year, boy, I tell you, social media lights up. I feel like a complete buffoon based on some of the comments I hear. Why isn't so-and-so in there? And why isn't so-and-so in there?
Right.
But that's part of the fun too, right? That's part of the fun.
Well, exactly, and they need a Hall of Fame. I'm sure the committee members will be ready to face some heat when those times come. But it's going to be fun. I'm not sure how many people are going to be on the committee or how they're going to go about it.
I know one guy that better be on the committee.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. I'll be glad to help contribute any way I can, because this is something that I think has been long overdue, and hopefully they'll have an announcement. I know they're working on it, so hopefully they'll have an announcement soon.
Don, we appreciate your time. We can do this all night long, and I'm glad high school football has crossed our paths with you. You do a fantastic job with the state championship broadcast, with the Blue, with the Jenks, on TV, on radio. You do a great job. You're one of the best ever do it. I'm glad our paths have crossed, and best of luck Friday night. Have a great call, and whatever happens on the field happens on the field. But I know you'll have a great call.
Exactly. It's on Jenks Trojan TV, and good luck to you guys. I know it's kind of a slow start for you guys, but I know Guthrie will be there at the end, and it's I've been doing it 50 years, guys, and one of the highlights is working with you three. So I appreciate the compliment, and right back at you. Look forward to seeing you guys soon.
Hey, Don, I know we're letting you go, but I got to ask this. I didn't get it in. I want you to tell me your one piece of memorabilia that you're most proud of. Just real quick.
I should have.
Just
give me one. It out for you.
Give me one.
Yeah, it's easy. Oklahoma Today magazine, when Jimmy Johnson and Barry Switzer were head coaches, have them in trooper outfits, nose to nose, to promote. It had to be probably the 1976 Bedlam game. And so I have the cover of that. And I'm sorry that I used to produce Switzer's TV show in the 80s. And I really wish I'd had him sign it and Pat Jones to get Jimmy to sign it. And I probably need to do that. And if I do that, I'm going to certainly auction it off to a charity.
I was going to say, wait a second. That's part of the collection. That's part of the collection.
Well, we'll barter about that if I don't get it autographed.
Don, enjoy the game Friday, and we'll look forward to seeing you here in a few months.
Thanks, Don.
Thanks, Don.
Thanks, guys. Good to talk to you.
Don King, the voice of the Jenks Trojans. Appreciate his time here on the High School Huddle. We need to get a break. We got a lot to get to here in the next hour or so. We'll take a break. This is the High School Huddle, presented by our title sponsor, Red River Roofing.